The Layla Show. Welcome to another week of The Layla Show, where we build a conscious community one conversation at a time. With your host, me, Layla Ziari, coming at you with weekly episodes every Friday featuring guests from all over the world and so many different industries, sharing their stories, experience, tales, laughing, loving, and just vibing out. The Layla Show. Welcome back to another week of The Layla Show. I'm your host, Layla Ziari, as you know, and this week we are talking to Michael Reed, the adaptive male, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your thing. And you are an aspiring, or you are a men's health coach?
Mixture of both.
Mixture of both.
Getting there slowly but surely. It's just going to take some time, yeah.
All right, so tell us about your journey. Who are you? Why?
Yes.
Why men's health? Other than wellness is great, we need it.
Yeah, so it's a combination of my own personal life story and things that kind of mixes in. Currently I do massage therapy. I have the short version of my life story is I actually went to school for engineering, but I got really heavy into health and wellness and fitness and things like that. After school, just could not find much passion in doing engineering work, and I got into personal training instead, the health and wellness angle. Got into massage therapy as an extension of that. Turns out I really enjoy helping people, working with people. I've had a lot of people tell me I should do something along the lines of therapy because I'm very good with just like communication, talking to clients, and making them feel comfortable. Therapy is a really expensive thing, so I decided to go into coaching instead. A big part of the reason, specifically men's coaching in particular, was that my most recent relationship fell apart, which was like relationship number 7 or 8 over the course of like 10 years since I started dating in my mid to late teens. And I had a bit of an aha moment where I realized almost every one of the relationships started and fell apart for the same sequence, same reason.
What reason
Same.
is that?
I still probably do have a bit of a subconscious radar for women with father wounds. It's a nice way of saying it.
Well, don't
Usually,
most of us have those? I don't know, like I do.
but there's a certain you don't realize it until afterwards, I think. Because when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize it's happening. And when I sat down, I looked at like all the relationships I've had. I was like, holy crap, there's a pattern here. Like
Mhm.
this happened before. This is not the first time this has happened. And then talking to a lot of my guy friends and then a lot of my massage clients and looking around and realizing, oh, it's happening everywhere. It's not just me. Not this specific setup. It's different from person to person, different relationship to relationship
No.
as to why it works or why it doesn't work. But there's a very common theme of relationship issues nowadays. The dating scene is kind of a crap compared to it used to be. A lot of divorce rate is spiking for a variety of reasons. And a lot of people are looking to very superficial, quick answers to explain it. Like, oh, well, women are just, you can't please them, or men need to be 7 feet tall with $500 million a year, or those that don't want to date you, or, whatever. It is a myriad of quick, simple reasons people point to, but the deeper truth is that we've kind of lost touch with what it means to actually be healthy, grounded in your own body, within your own space, happy with who you are, and then how to bring that to the world in a productive way, which then will lead to healthier relationships. So in my own journey, I'm trying to figure out like, where did this come from? Why did this happen? Started talking to other people and they had the exact same question, like, well, what the hell do I do? How do I fix this? How do I change this? And I was like, cool, I guess I can help people with that too. So now I'm stepping into this field of trying to get into men's coaching more from the angle of science, from the perspective of biology, evolution, looking at the history of like societies and how they've evolved and why certain traditions and mannerisms and behaviors are there on like a genetic level, on a neurological level, on a behavioral level, and how it all kind of interlinks into why it's so important to, you know, take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, what things you need to have in your life, what's going on today, why it's disrupting that, and getting guys to start having a healthier relationship with themselves, with other people, figuring out what they want through life and how to bring that to the world so that they can get what they want out of it in less of a spiritual woo kind of way,
Yeah.
where you get these people who are just like, you have to get in touch with your inner child. And I'm just like, that's it's stupid. But if you tell me inner child is another way of saying you have a behavior pattern that you picked up from childhood that
Well,
is like wired into your nervous system.
that's what I hear, like think of it as just like the wounding or like the like whatever, I don't know, whatever nurturing you didn't get as a child per se,
Yes.
or,
You'll seek it in adulthood and you won't even realize you're doing it. There's a good quote from Carl Jung, famous German psychiatrist, I think. It said it was, if you don't make your unconscious conscious, if you don't bring the unconscious into your conscious, I don't know how the exact quote is, like you'll let it lead your life and you'll call it fate. So when you getting into the same routines and the same patterns keep happening again and again and again, oh, I'm just unlucky. Oh, it's just all women are bad. Oh, there's no good men out there. Oh, that's the problem. It's not. No, it's you. There's
no.
something you haven't really like mended it or fixed in the back of your head, coming something from your childhood, from your adolescent experiences, from somewhere in middle school, high school, whatever it happened. Somewhere along the way, something got disrupted in the process of you becoming a healthy, mature, well-rounded adult, and now you're carrying that into a relationship or relationships or careers or your life, and something's problematic and it keeps repeating itself. But you need to like look inwards and kind of figure out where it's coming from, how to address it, how to fix it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, we're all guilty of that. Every single
Hmm.
person
On some level, yeah.
on some level. I mean, I'm similar to you. I had repetitive patterns in relationships after relationships, and I'd be like, oh, but this person, like, on the exterior is like a little bit better, like a little bit nicer. And it's like, no, we keep repeating cycles until we break them, and it
Hmm.
is the unconscious 100%. And yeah, like so many people are not aware of what that is or why that's happening. And yeah, you have to be able to do that. But I like that you're not coming from a per se woo woo, as you call
Hmm.
it, spiritual perspective. Because it is like at the end of the day, I look at it as the same fucking thing. It's just like what
It is.
resonates with different people. So it's
Yep.
like, and I get so many spiritual people on this podcast. So I'm liking your alternative perspective from evolutionary standpoint because I'm very philosophical myself and I like to look at things from like all perspectives.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, because there's like a gap when, some people are just not into like the spiritual community at all, which is fine. You don't fucking have to be. So like, if it's coming from that angle, they're not going to listen to a goddamn thing you have to say, and that's just like
Hmm.
what it is. So, tell us, yeah, talk to us about that alternative. Like, yeah, you mentioned so many things, evolution, modern, whatever. But you
Yeah.
said, like 7 different things, and I want to hear about it.
Where do we want to start?
I don't fucking know. I'm like, I'm supposed to be a good leader. I'm telling you today. I'm not. I'm gonna let
All
you
good. All good. All good.
charge today. This is not usually how it goes, but I don't want to be in charge right now. Okay, I'm gonna let you take the masculine goddamn lead, and I'm gonna sit back on my fucking ass and tap into my feminine energy, and just you can run the goddamn show today. I'm not doing it.
Sure thing. Let's go for it. Yeah. So, like a quick thought experiment I like to think about, and I try to get people to think about is there's a common misconception people have about people as they are as a function of just they should be a certain way because of certain. You've ever heard this is like, how are you this old and you still act like this? How is this person like 50 and they still act like a teenager? Like or kids these days? There's something wrong with kids these days.
Well,
I was like, well, what happened? Like, why were
society
kids
these days.
better 70, 80 years ago? It's like, what, if you look back then, like if you took somebody today and teleported them back in time, if you had like a brand new baby who was born today and threw him in a time machine and went back to like the 1920s, something like that, he or she would be raised in that culture. He would adapt to that culture.
Right.
So it's really more a function of what is going on environmentally that is leading to people acting a certain way. It's
Because
not that
society
people
is a
like kids
fucking shit show, but
for a variety of reasons, but it's not a function entirely of people being like inherently broken because they're born a certain way. It's a big part of it is environmental and cultural and things like that. So my thought experiment is to say like hypothetically, I have a time machine. And I can hop in the time machine I can go back to any point in time within the last like 50,000 years. Not like 50 years, 500 years. So that's like
wow,
50,000 long fucking
that's a
time.
long. I know. Now you're gonna get me thinking of where I would go, but
But
oh,
in the context of human evolution, it's not that much time. It's
no,
the confusing part. The people think 50,000 years ago is a really long time ago. It's like, yeah, and the Earth's been around for like 4 million years. Like,
right.
if you do the math, it's like less than 1%,
That's
basically.
true.
Very small time. Or however, 13, I don't know how old the Earth is, I forget.
I don't either, but a lot older
6,000
than
years if you're really
50,000.
fundamentalist Christian. But aside from that, basically, hypothetically, if I could hop in a time machine and I can go back to any time point in time in the last 50,000 years. I step out of the time machine, and as soon as I step outside, it just so happens that like a man and a woman just passed away. They were fully grown adults. They just passed away. They're lying on the ground. I pick them up, take them in the time machine, I bring them to the present, and I go to like a biologist or a neuroscientist, and I say to him, "Okay, here's the deal. You can only do a scan of their brain. You can't look at their skin color. You can't look at their clothes, their bone structure, their like nothing physically cultural, but only the inside. All you can look at is their brain structure, nothing else." And my question is, how far back in time would you have to go before you could no longer recognize it as being a human being?
Hmm.
Because at some point, like we became human beings and the culture and whatnot kind of evolved into who we are today. But the underlying idea is that just because things have changed in today's day and age doesn't mean we're that much different from who we were 10,000 years ago.
No, I don't know that I think that we are. I like
Yeah.
feel like fundamentally, like we are what we are as beings. Like you said, I do feel like as technology evolves, as the world evolves, like we are a product of our environment and evolution is, but like fundamentally on like a human being level, human
Hmm.
beings are human beings. Like
Yeah.
whatever our nature has really not fucking changed at all,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
ask me. Yeah.
And so the question becomes like, well, what worked back then that we threw out of the window today that we need to bring back to get working today? Or understanding like what is it that makes like a man, most optimal and functionally and healthy? What's make a woman most optimal and functionally healthy? And certain things like for example, simple example is for women. Like, no amount of money and we'll say boss bitch status, whatnot, is for the majority of women gonna make up for the fact that there is a general inherent desire for comfort and safety in the context of a relationship. You're
100%.
gonna be naturally attracted to men who can demonstrate a capacity to not only keep you safe, but also keep like present himself as being safe to be around.
Right.
That doesn't change in the last like 100,000 years,
No, I
basically.
don't think it ever will, honestly. That's like what
And
we
that's just it's a byproduct of evolution for a variety of reasons. And so like back in the day, men were the hunter-gatherer providers and women were usually the nurturer caretakers of like the children. And it's just, I'm not saying that we need to go back to those days. I'm
Well, I
saying,
mean, I kind of do though in a sense because if you ask me what the fuck is wrong in the difference, that's the difference. The difference is that we're all playing roles that we don't belong in, like realistically. And I'm not saying like I need to be a housewife and raise babies, like, but like honestly, I'd rather be like I don't want children. Like, let's just put that out there before I say this and someone comes at me stupid for saying this, but I don't ever want to have children in this particular reality. But yeah, I would rather be like taking care of the home, singing Kumbaya with my tribe of women, like taking care of the homestead. Well, our men went and hunted and brought home food and shit. Like I just like inherently like what we're doing as a society isn't right. Like it doesn't feel right because we're adapting roles that I don't need to be a boss bitch, but I have to be because like I have to be hyper independent. I have to take on 90% of my life. I have to take on the role of the masculine because like I have to provide for myself. I
why do
have
you have
to,
to be though?
well, because who the fuck else is going to? Are you going to
Well,
provide for me? I don't know.
like, no, the question being then like, have you had a difficult time maybe if you care to discuss on this, you can cut this out as like difficult time in holding relationships down and why not?
I can't. I absolutely can't. I mean, I could in the future. I don't, but yeah, no, I have the majority of my relationships, I have had to provide for these weak ass fucking little bitch men who can't do anything, who have like serious mommy issues, who need nurturing, who like literally show up with absolutely nothing to the table. So obviously, like, that was a pattern I have to look on. But now I'm like so single that I never want to get in a relationship again because I'm horrified at the ideology of like giving up any of the control I now have over my life
Mm,
because I feel like all my life people just took and took and took and like I was never safe and I had to make us both safe and that's like not fair to me. And so now that I'm finally in a position where like I pay my bills, I take care of myself, everything I want in my life I've given to me. I like what value like do you have? And if I give some of my control away and then you fucking fuck me over, like where am I left? Like so yeah, that's obviously also a product of like trauma because I have shared all my resources with people before and they have literally left me high and dry and fucked my whole life up because of that. And I understand
mm.
that like I can't go into my whole rest of my life like, oh yeah, that's what's gonna happen. But of course, like I have immaculate protection of my personal space in life at this point because of all of that. Like I just don't have
trust and faith or like to give you any reins over me at this point, like anybody.
Hmm.
And I say that I would love to be provided for and stay at home, and because I love to cook, I like to organize, I like, I would like to run little cute side businesses that I don't give a fuck if they like succeed. You know what I mean? I'm creative. I like to write. I like to do my podcast. I love to sell clothes. But do I need that to like have to pay the bills? No, I don't really want it to. I would love to be provided for. But I also don't know if I'll ever let that in again.
That's
So,
a that's an entirely different podcast
right.
to discuss. We could,
Should I answered
yeah,
it?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And that, but it is a very common narrative what you're talking to, which is a lot of women feel kind of like having a hard time finding good men, and
Right.
then there's something of a mismatch between, I think personally, between there is some truth to the state of the economic conditions and the state of raising, boys and becoming the men that they're becoming nowadays. Uh, but there is something of a mismatch, and like this feel like one of the general narratives you see online is like there's no good men out there. There's no good men. I could say the same thing. Like if I was only looking at through the lens of my past relationships, I would say there's no good women. Why?
Right.
Because I kept finding the exact same type of woman over and over again.
Right. Well, I would never go out as to say that, but I think, we say that because
No, I'm not saying you're saying that.
okay. Okay,
No,
keep
no, no,
going.
no. I'm saying like this like beneath that there are people who will say that narrative, who will
No, I hear
get your
them all the
point.
time.
And the like for me, for example, I'll be honest with myself and say I know that down the road, if I ever wanted to like, get married, start a family and things like that, I'm gonna have to find somebody who is actually like not the type of woman I found before.
Right.
Or if I was a woman, I'm not the type of man I found before.
Right.
But being with that kind of person who's like healthy, grounded, has a healthy family system, or if they don't, they've done the work to repair that wound within
Right.
themselves,
Because you
they're
don't have
gonna present in a very like grounded way, and it's gonna freak me out, and I know that because it's happened before.
Hi, me too. How do we get over that?
But you meet that's the interesting part. Like you'll meet somebody who's like, wow, this guy or this girl has his or her shit together. I'm gonna say it from a girl from my perspective. She has her shit together. She's well rounded. She has a
I
healthy
think that's
father. Her father is in her
amazing.
life. That's yeah. So what's going on essentially is this is back to the childhood wounding thing, is that we we are a product of our environment. It is nature versus nurture. But what you end up doing in as growing up, this is where the adaptive part of adaptive male comes from. It's like
Right.
we are very, very adaptive creatures. We can adapt to a
100%.
lot of a massively wide variety of circumstances to growing up. The problem becomes when you have to learn to adapt to hostile environments in your childhood, which then carries over into adulthood, and you don't realize your nervous system in your body is programmed to look for that particular situation to repeat it without realizing it.
Right. Well, it's because like it's
And
all we know, I guess. It's like,
yeah, so it literally feels weird once you meet somebody who's like when I've had opportunities for women in the past that I could have dated that they're like I met their fathers and they were great guys and they got along well with their daughters and the family was great. And I was just sitting there like, I don't know why, but I just don't feel it. This feels weird. I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know if it's gonna work. And then the next day I meet somebody who's like father was a complete douchebag. I'm like, you're the one for
yeah,
me.
yeah, that's
Yes, you're the one. Absolutely. This is gonna work out great. And then only for like a year later, it blows up in your face. You're like, what the fuck keeps going on? And you look back
that's
and you're like, oh,
the
it must be
same
the
goddamn person. Like, I don't know.
yes.
You
And so
can't,
the
yeah,
so the
expect
question then
different people.
becomes like, yeah, the question then becomes like, how do you fix this wound? And the part that sucks in a way is that there's a good quote. I don't know if you're familiar with the guy. His name is Dewey Freeman.
Mm-mm.
The guy is basically like Obi-Wan Kenobi of men's therapy and of health coaching. Like he's like,
I
you
love
think
that.
he's in his 70s or 80s, but he's been doing this for like 40 years. He's like, he knows everything and anything. He could like, he's the kind of guy that you could talk to him and within like 3 sentences, he'll have you crying your eyes out about your childhood, but shit you don't even know you're holding on to. Like he's amazing at what he does,
Love that
really.
actually. I want to be
Uh,
therapist.
so well, like I've learned from guys who've learned from him. I'm doing a lot of like work and whatnot around the men's coaching and the men's therapy practice through him. And he has a good quote. It's we're wounded in a relationship and we're healed in a relationship. And the underlying idea is like you're not going to be able to fix this pattern outside of being in a relationship with somebody who's healthy.
Oh, okay. Well, that answers a lot of my my
So
question.
the hard part is to basically recognize. So here's a quick little the short version of a bit of psychology is the statement is story follows state. Without going too deep into like the biology of the neurology of it, emotions are way faster than logic as far as your brain goes.
Right.
You feel an emotion way fast, and what you don't realize is that when you're walking around looking at stuff in the environment, you're actually seeing things you don't realize you're seeing.
Mhm.
Not everything that you see gets registered on like a conscious level.
Which makes sense because
And they've done experiments to show this. Like this is a really cool experiment they did was like they took people who were recovering like I think it was drug addicts, like we'll say like cocaine or heroin, like cocaine, like white powdery substance.
yeah.
And what they did was they put them in they had like a brain scanner like on their head, and there's a kind of just watching for a certain. They were in like an MRI machine, I think it was. And what they had a screen inside. And what they would do is they would just flash like random pictures of random things, and they would see what parts of the brain lights up when they see the picture. But what they did a couple times was they would have like a picture of like a happy family, but right before the picture came up for like 1/50th of a second, like faster than you could even see what the hell it was, it would be like a picture of a pile of cocaine. And then the happy family would come up. It sounds goofy, but
It is a little bit,
but the idea was that they would do it like it would flash up for basically a microsecond and then family picture would pop up. And then they actually noticed that what would happen is like the part of the brain associated with addiction would flare online.
right.
But if you ask the person, what did you see? They'd be like,
It's a
picture of a happy
family.
family.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I didn't see anything else but a happy family. But
Right.
you actually saw the thing, even though you didn't realize you saw it.
Right.
So what's happening is like you're constantly scanning your environment all the time. You ever been like walking through a crowd and suddenly you just like you see somebody, all of a sudden you recognize them. You're like, oh shit, like it just kind of
Yeah.
hits you out of nowhere. Like it has like 1,000 faces, but all of a sudden you spotted that one person you know.
Well, it's like the
'Cause-
recognition.
But you're able to filter through all that information because you're looking at everything, but you don't
Right.
realize what you're looking at with that you're actually looking at. So the idea is like your brain, your eyes are scanning the environment for things that you don't even realize you're looking at. So the exact same thing kind of goes along with behaviors in terms of dating and relationships. When you find somebody who's reminiscent of, in your case, of those guys, or me in my case, those women who have those behavior patterns,
Yeah.
the first thing that comes up is this guy kind of seems interesting. This girl kind of seems kind of cute.
It's so interesting. So
And you're like interesting. And then within 2 or 3 dates, you're like, oh, by the way, I have all these issues. You're like, again, what the fuck? Like, because there's a certain behavior pattern in the cadence and the way they talk and the way they carry themselves, what they respond to when you like make certain suggestions and maybe you're flirting, whatnot, how they respond to it. Your brain's picking up on it, and it's looking for that exact same pattern you had before to keep repeating it because it's all it knows.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so the idea of story follows state is that you get an emotional response from the back of your brain and from something you saw, and then your brain creates a story to justify what you're feeling.
Yeah.
This is why you could look back in your relationships and be like, at the time it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking back, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Fucking sense. Like I look through these things sometimes and I'm just like, are you fucking dumb? And then you did it like 6 more times, my love. Like how, and like, you break away from it and you're like, duh. Like how
But the idea is that like the emotions they're quicker and they're much more powerful than logic is.
They're also a little like self-deprecating and masochistic.
How so?
Because if you keep repeating the same thing over and over again to the detriment of your well-being, emotions are shit.
No. This ties into self-awareness.
Well, it doesn't. You just proved absolutely that it doesn't fucking matter because
What doesn't matter?
Self-awareness on some level. Because
it does matter. It absolutely matters.
I'm very self-aware. I'm in the best place I've ever been for myself in my entire life. But you just like basically said that until we get into like a relationship that is the opposite of that, our brain is still going to do the same thing. It doesn't matter in self-awareness.
But
we're not going to do it.
The self-awareness is where you break the pattern.
Right. Well,
the self-awareness is basically like for me, for example, like I live in New York currently, I'll be moving down south in a couple months. I am aware of the fact that I am much more naturally primed to seek women with daddy issues. And I've had it happen before where I've had massage patients. I have mostly women in my practice. Most women, like guys don't really like massage too much. Mostly a medical massage, but
I feel like everyone should get massage.
Everyone should, but most guys are like, oh, I don't want God dude touching me and it's gay. Whatever. It's kind of ridiculous. But the idea is that I've had women who are coming through on the practice and like, I keep it professional. I never do anything inappropriate or weird, but like part of me is like, oh, you know what? She's kind of cute. She seems nice. She seems friendly. And I can't tell how many times I've like had women come in that within like 2 or 3 visits, I'm like, I kind of like, she's kind of cute. Also, I'm like, by the way, my parents are divorced. My dad's an asshole. I'm like, how does this keep fucking happening? What the fuck? But then
Right.
I've also been in relationships, like I said before, been in relationships with women who are like had healthy backgrounds, healthy families. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. I can't explain it, but I'm just not feeling it. I don't know why. Like you're perfect, and I don't have interest. I don't know why.
No, I totally get it because my trip has always been unavailable like men on some level. They're just like emotionally, they're just like unavailable on every level. And then I've met available men and I'm like, that's disgusting. Can you please go away now?
Yeah,
I don't
but
like
that's part of the healing is basically being self-aware enough to recognize, like, I know
Right.
the next relationship I get into, ideally, if it is with a woman who like has either done the work and is
Well, yeah.
grounded or has a healthy family, I'm gonna have to like stay straight up, like, you're awesome, you're perfect, and I'm gonna feel weird for a little while. Oh yeah, my cat. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Oh, right.
Oh, there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he likes a little house there. Yeah.
I'm talking to your cat. Your cat can't hear.
Oh, I couldn't hear you for a second there. But that's the idea is like you essentially have to voluntarily say to yourself, like, I'm gonna get in a relationship with this person, and no matter what my body throws at me to stop me, I'm gonna stick it out.
Well, yeah.
I'm gonna openly communicate everything I'm feeling. I'm gonna be open and honest about everything, and I'm gonna have a certain degree of transparency to say, even though I feel this, my body's telling me this, I actually want to do this, and I
Right.
need to just keep doing it until it becomes normal.
Right.
This is actually what we do. I have had patients in the past who have had who are actually like sexual assault victims,
Yeah.
and part of their recovery is getting used to physical contact again. So it's like their body's saying, "Don't fucking touch me," but at the same time, like, physical contact is a necessary human need, and you have to learn to get used to it again. It's the same way of being in a relationship with somebody who is like, "Wow, this person's really well grounded and nice and friendly," and your body goes, "Ugh, no, gross." Like, no, you just sit with that feeling until it passes. And when you open up that communication with your partner, basically saying like, I know you love to hug and kiss me, and like part of me wants it, part of me loves it, but
Right.
another part of me is screaming at me to stop. So I can only maybe do, like, if we're cuddling, I could do 5 minutes, but then they need a break.
Well,
And
yeah.
when you communicate that to the person, it's like if I pull away, it's not because I don't love you, it's because I'm overstimulated. But it's
Right.
not because of anything you did. It's because I've got some history that I'm working through. My body is reacclimating to this feeling now.
Well, yeah, yeah. And actually, you shouldn't be in a relationship that there where you can't communicate anyway, so that
But
makes
that's, yeah, so the most important part is like self-awareness to recognize, oh, it's not you, it's me, literally.
right.
And I
Well,
can
yeah.
point to this one thing why, and here's how it'll play out. Is like you might want to give me like a hug or a kiss, and I'll tell you like I can only do like one hug a day, but next week we'll try twice a day. And then if we have to, we'll do 3 days a day. Or like we can cuddle, but it has to be less than 5 minutes because I tend to get overstimulated and need time to just cool off and take a breather. But then the next time it's going to get easier. And it's kind of like working out. It's like it gets easier and easier the more you do it. It's like exercise. And you're basically trying to retrain your subconscious, your nervous system to acclimate to this is now normal. Maybe because I didn't get it growing up as a kid, I have to do that's what the work is. The work essentially is sitting with the discomfort that your body's throwing at you to try to change your patterns in relationship using somebody else in the relationship.
So it's basically like all the self-work you do on yourself, but applied to a relationship, which obviously makes sense, but I don't know why. What like when you talk to me about relationships, like my body just shuts down. It's like, nope.
Yes, but you're aware of it though.
I'm a most self-aware person I've literally ever met in my life, but like, and but it's just stupid. It's stupid because when I like sit in my head, it's like you have done so much work on yourself. Like obviously the relationship would be the same kind of like I've had to retrain my brain for every single other thing in my entire life, but
Hmm.
it's just been for me and me. But like obviously a relationship would be the same thing. But I'm telling you, like my brain and my body is just so anti-relationship that like it doesn't compute like that in my head. You have to like break it down like I'm a 2-year old.
What break what down specifically?
Like just the fundamentals of what obviously that you would have to do the same kind of work that you do on yourself to like retrain yourself, like break, like be aware, be like, you know what I mean? You just don't.
Yeah, and this is a good example of this would be like rules of engagement. If you get into a relationship with somebody,
Yeah.
what a lot of healthy couples will do is they'll basically say we're going to set some ground rules ahead of time so that when we get into a fight, because eventually an argument will happen, a fight will
100%.
happen.
Yeah.
But when you set down ground rules saying like, okay, when eventually someday when we get into a fight, an argument, No name calling, no personal attacks, no ad hominem. Look, we're focusing on the problem, not each other.
Right.
And then, like, if we need to take a break, if we get overwhelmed and it's too much, we promise to come back within 12 hours,
Right. I like.
whatever it may be. And it's like saying, like, no matter how emotional I get, or you get, or we get, like, this is the things we're going to stick to. Because you have to use these as like an anchor to start training yourself over time to say, like, when I get into an argument, it's not that I hate you, it's that I'm annoyed at a thing that happened.
Right.
And it's not like and we're gonna just we'll get better and better at this conflict dispute the more we practice it. We'll get better at being in a relationship the more we practice it. We'll get better at being, like, intimate and physical and physical contact the more we practice it. It's literally what it is.
And you do have to practice all of that. It's just, I don't know why it's terrifying to me to involve anybody else
That's
in your
fun. That's where things like therapy or coaching comes into play, is to help, like, guide you through it
But what if
and
I
get
never
you exposed
make
to
a
it.
relationship again because all of it sounds horrible? Well, then,
Yeah.
I have my own issues, It's fine.
Well, the flip side of that becomes like, where do you see yourself in 10, 15, 20 years?
Traveling the world, eating pasta, and I'm with my cats.
If that's genuinely what you want, then by all means,
I
absolutely.
know. I feel like I'm saying,
Problem is,
but I don't know if I mean that. You know what I mean?
there's the other part of the problem.
Like, because my whole life most of my life I was a serial relationshipist, so I am really enjoying this time being single. I think it's very healthy for me. I don't actually want to be in a relationship in anytime in the next like 2 or 3 years in general. But I've always been such a hopeless romantic and loved love. So it's like everything I say kind of goes against the fundamentals of my being. Like my very being is very like I've written a book of fucking love poems for fuck's sake. Like I love love. Like so for me to actually tell you that, I don't know how like I feel like 90% of that is a defense mechanism. 10% is that I'm really actually enjoying this like I really am enjoying this era of my life, like because,
Hmm.
like I said, I've been in nothing but toxic relationships my whole life, and then but just did it back to back. So I've never actually like had this much like I'm enjoying
You're
the fuck
learning
out of
who
this.
you are.
Right, and I
You're
love this
discovering
phase of
you.
my life. I'm very happy. Like my behaviors towards myself are no longer toxic. I've done so much work on myself. I love being alone for the first time in my life. Like I enjoy myself. So it's like, am I in a rush to ever lose that? No. So like part of it is that when I say that, but the other part is obviously projecting like the horror and
Yeah,
terror I feel about entering a relationship. So I don't know, like there is some truth to that. I would like to be traveling the world. I don't ever want kids, like no matter who I'm with. That's non-negotiable. That's never gonna fucking happen. Um, but like it would be nice to like have someone to like do life with, I guess, at some point.
very commonly what I see, and I'm not making an observation of you specifically, it's a lot of people who do this, myself included. Like, if you ask me right this second, do you want family? Do you want kids? I'd be like, fuck no,
No.
because I'm single. But I've been in relationships with people in the past. But personally, I'm saying, like, personally,
Yeah.
I've been in a relationship with that person that makes you be like, oh, I get it now. I understand. I actually could see this happening. I understand it. But then when I'm out of a relationship, I have no
I
interest.
know, but what like is it physically possible to be in a relationship and just genuinely not want? I mean, there's people who really just don't want that. And I don't
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah. That's fair. But I think that I'm suspecting more people do and don't realize it because the conditions to bring about that instinct is not there.
yeah, I mean that could be true too. But like
It's
who
like
does want, I mean, I get it, so many people want that. I just think that there's nothing appealing to the whole concept of raising an entity that like needs you forever. Like
purpose,
it appalls.
legacy.
But can't you like have a different purpose or like not want to come back to this earth or not give a fuck about anybody but yourself and having fun in this lifetime because fuck serious shit? Like that's how I feel. See, why am I so defensive about this though?
You're
Like
aware of it though.
I am, but
There's
like
self-awareness again.
I hate the concept that like one day I will change my mind and that there's like not from you, but there is such like a negative connotation that I feel this way in general and that like somehow I'm wrong for feeling this way. And I don't think that's really fair either. Like what if that is just how it is? And what if I change my mind? That's fine too. I'm
The
okay with
yeah.
those.
Well, the argument then again is like a lot. I have no women in my life who don't have kids, but they do a lot of things in their life, their job, their behaviors, their mannerisms that kind of suggests like there's like a proxy for children.
Mm.
They work with kids, they have pets, they do a lot of babysitting, a lot of volunteer work with kids. But then it's like, well, why don't you want kids? Like, oh, because like I'd never want that. When you look under the surface, and it's like, what was your childhood like? It was like it was fucking chaos. And what you get is the people saying like, I just don't want to repeat what happened to me.
Hmm.
And the underlying statement to that is, you don't have to if you choose not to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the awareness would mean that you wouldn't, I mean, I know that like families repeat patterns, but there's like a lack of self-awareness in anybody, you know what I mean? Like nobody who's aware of not wanting to repeat that is going to repeat that, I don't think.
Yeah. The fear is that it's gonna like it's not within your control to stop repeating.
But 100% is. And
It
they're
is. So
we're
then the question then
encouraged.
becomes, yeah, you're right. But then the question then becomes, if you could not repeat that pattern, would you then change your mind about wanting a family?
No.
Given that you could, not you specifically, but the person
No.
that's saying this.
I mean, no.
But that's also there's also a statement of you wouldn't know how you feel until you feel it.
Why would I do something that I don't want?
Because what you want right now is a function of the state you're in.
Right. Well, isn't it always going to be like,
So then the point being you can change the environmental conditions to encourage a certain state to come up.
right? Okay, but what if I don't want to? What if I really like my environmental state?
It's fine. You can keep it the way it is. My concern is for the people, like you said, like, 10, 20, 30 years from now, someone looks back and says, fuck, I actually wish I did that sort of thing. I've met a lot of people who have like said, I don't want it 40, 45, 50 years old comes around. They're like, oh, fuck, I really did want it. And I was telling myself
Right.
I didn't this whole time in order to try to just like convince myself I'd be happier when I look back and I realize I'm not.
No, I see that from people. I also have friends too. I don't know. I think like a lot of my friends are now trying to have children or
How
like
old are they on
things,
average?
you know, 35,
Yeah.
30s.
That's what I see a lot of too,
I'm 31 and I'm like, y'all are fucking nuts. But but like I just like one of my friends stood out really much to me because she's actually come on my podcast and been like, having children is blasphemy and fuck kids. And now she's like, I don't know, I kind of want a family. And I'm like, whoa.
This is the so this is something we talk about the whole sequence. So you know what oxytocin is?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, like there's a lot of things in your environment. Like the people who came from relatively healthy backgrounds and family environments are usually the ones that grow up and also want to repeat it.
Right.
And so something like it's like you ever talk to somebody who has kids and like, what was it like? It's just like I can't explain it. It's like the most euphoric feeling you've ever like I cannot even put the words to describe the feeling because it's literally like it's a brand new feeling because you've never felt it before. Or if
Yeah.
you felt it, it's been in a different context. So in the context of having kids, it's like as a baby or even like adults and babies like when they're bonding with each other. So here's let's go back really far. Man, woman comes along, they fall in love. They end up having, sexual relations. The sex itself is producing oxytocin, which is pair bonding them to each other. It's kind of like what's wiring them to want to be together. Eventually, pregnancy comes along, baby comes along. Childbirth itself produces a lot of oxytocin. Breastfeeding, oxytocin. Interacting with your eye contact, oxytocin promoted. This is why people who are just like, who have a hard time with like eye contact, they have a hard time with relationships and things like that. It's like, that is an oxytocin kind of producing activity. Anyway,
Sometimes
when
I
you,
feel like having babies is for people who can never feel fulfilled by their own life and find happiness without providing, though. Sometimes I feel like it's just because you're broken.
having children is because you're broken.
Sometimes. Sometimes I feel like people do it for the wrong reasons.
Sometimes,
And
I
I
will,
feel
yeah,
like
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Sometimes,
I just feel like somebody couldn't fill their own cup. Like sometimes, yes, I feel like you're destined to be a mother, but I genuinely see so many people who I feel like are just trying to fill a void in their own life and like give because they can't give to themselves. And like,
we are naturally reciprocating creatures. Like we do, like
right.
the happiest you're going to be generally is when you're in service to others and they're in service to you.
But there's like so many ways to do that without children, is my point. Like my whole life is in servitude to myself, but also in like what I can do for this earth or whoever crosses my path. So I just like,
I'm not knocking your decision to not have kids.
no, but I'm just saying, I know, but I'm just saying, like,
I
I,
think this is a prevailing narrative as a result of the culture, not because of some underlying genetic built-in feeling.
yeah.
And the
But
idea being like if I took you and I took you or someone like you like back in time, I don't know what your childhood was like, I don't know what your family was like, your parents was like, your relationship with them was like, but If I said like, here's the most apple pie fucking life possible. Mom is super grounded, dad works hard, and he shows you love and affection, then you turn into an adult, and like also like you'd be walking going like, I want to repeat that. That felt good. But if people don't if there's a lot of
That's true.
dysfunction in the culture on like a
Yeah.
family level, it will result in adults who then basically say like, oh, I think I don't want to repeat it because maybe some like story follows state, the emotions. And when I think about that, I think back to childhood. I've had a
Right.
lot of guys I've worked with, especially with the men's coaching, where like they'll be like, I just, I feel this, and this, or like it's something in a relationship that's problematic. And then within like two sentences, like, well, what was it like with your dad? Oh, my dad was a piece of crap. What was it like with your mom? Oh, she was controlling, she was emotional, da, 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 like myself included. My mother, I love her to death. She passed away about 10 years ago, but
Right.
I became her emotional caretaker growing up. She was very emotionally dysregulated. She, behind the scenes in the public, she was like, I'm fine. Everything's
Well,
fine. It's totally fine. And in private, it was like, no, she would just be like losing her shit every other day on like something like just from whatever reason, emotionally dysregulated. And I became like, what can I do to make sure you're happy? I took
Right.
that into adulthood and I go up to women. I'm like, what can I do to make you happy? All you have to do is make you happy.
And this
And a
is
lot of
why
women
you
are like,
like.
this is fucking too much. What the hell? I'm like, but this is what I learned growing up. This is how I conditioned myself. My behaviors, my nervous system is like, I was told if I just make you happy, then I get what I want. And it blows up in my face and it repeatedly blows in my face over and over and over again. Option A is to say, I need to fix my own behavior pattern. Option B is to say, no, it's them that's the problem, not me. But then
Yeah.
the question being like,
Yeah.
would you then have had the decision to have a family or kids if you had a super functional childhood? I'm talking to like me right now, or to
Yeah,
any guy
yeah.
who
I
does.
mean, hypothetically, you and the rest of them, and but then obviously every time you say that, I have to ask myself just because I'm me and I'm reflecting what you're
hmm
saying back to you. I
hmm
don't really care what their answer is; they can figure that out when they listen to this podcast. That's not for
Well,
me.
sometimes the answer then becomes like you have to look at other people and try. So there's a good,
Well, yeah, you have to look at other people, but nobody else knows the answer other than
and the
themselves.
best you could do is approximate what has worked best
Right.
across the most amount of people. And
100%.
looking historically, the most amount of people seem to have had like the maximal success by being part of something bigger, having a legacy, having children to take care of. Because it's just
Mhm.
it's neurochemistry and brain feelings you're not going to feel until you feel it. And the hard
Right.
part about this is that you can't split test life. It's a really difficult thing people don't realize. Like I can't try living life one way and then go back in time and try it a
Wouldn't it
different
be
way.
fucking nice? I would try so, I mean, I already try so many things in this life, but like honestly, there's just not enough time to try everything, and then
So
you
the
can't
best we
do
can
that.
do then is approximate what other people have done and see if it worked
Right.
or not. And one of the things that I see across the board is like women in particular, because your biological clock, unfortunately, is a little bit more constrained to time, whereas guys, I could be like 90 and have a kid if I wanted to. But
Oh, yeah,
I
and it'd
also
be
don't
cool.
want to be a 90-year-old father if I can, like, 90-year-old father to like a newborn. If I was 90 and had kids who were in their 40s, I get that. But
Right,
it's
but
like, I
newborn,
don't,
that's rough. Like you don't want.
exactly.
It'll keep you alive probably for a while though. Keep you young. Maybe that's exactly when you should have babies when you're 90.
90. Yeah,
So then you're like, well, shit, I gotta stick around in my hundos and be
right.
youthful. Like that's actually maybe a life hack 101 for you guys.
But the idea that I've seen more and more women, especially nowadays, going in the direction of fertility issues, going down like IVF, in vitro,
Mhm.
and whatever it may be,
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
chasing the career, and that to me that becomes there are women who are genuinely like in like the normal healthy range of childbearing 20 to 35 who just can't get pregnant because it's just something happened. So that fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of women who basically said, I don't want kids, I don't want a family, and then all of a sudden 31, 32 comes along, not some point at your age, but like 35 comes along, and suddenly they're just like, I don't know why, but babies are really fucking cute. Way cuter than they were 5 years ago. What the fuck?
Yeah, no, I see it happen. I just make that face. I'm like, not gonna be me. I will hold out fucking strong on this.
Well, the question then becomes like, are you suppressing a feeling that needs to come up, that's natural, and needs to come up and wants to come up?
No, I just don't. I've never wanted to live a traditional life. I just don't
That's
feel
fair.
like
Yeah.
just because somebody else or most people do something that I should do it. I'm a rebel at my core. I'm
This
never.
could be that could be literally natural who you are. It's just fine.
That's just who I am
My
as a person. But
the counterpoint is like the vast majority of people don't fall into that category.
well, I know I've never fallen into the majority of anything. But I was just gonna make a point. I was not trying to make my face the point. A lot of my friends are at like at the 35 to like 40 range when they're like, holy shit, I actually do want this. And it's like,
And so
and I
the
see it
whole
happening, I watch them like literally shift out of whatever they thought before
the
that.
kids are gross and 35 like actually they're kind of cute. I guess they're kind of nice.
Yeah,
It's just like
it's
who could
literally
have guessed that this was going to happen? Well, the idea is like, who could have guessed this was going to happen? It's like, oh, you mean that thousands of other people ahead of you said this?
literally the internal you, your biology, the
And
clock inside of your body predicted this. Actually,
yeah, and so this is where I'm not saying we need to go back to like the 1920s where women just like, women just stayed home, had babies, and men just were. I'm saying like there is there's a good quote. It's traditions are just experiments that worked.
right,
So if traditionally we were like, you should get married and have kids young, it wasn't because we're like, we're trying to control you. It's like, no, we've already seen what happens if you wait too long. And the
right.
regret that comes along with it. And some people, not everyone, not you, but some people in life later on, that just, I've met like the women who are like 40, 50, 60, and they'll just basically say like, I don't want to say it out loud, but I actually really regret missing out on this
Well, I
opportunity
mean, a
to do it.
lot of women I know that are like pushing in their later 30s who feel like I do have been freezing their eggs just in case they like change their
Just
mind.
in case also sounds like, yeah, it's an insurance policy, but
I mean, there are a lot weirder things than that in our lives.
what's up?
We put insurance policies on a lot weirder things.
No, yeah, yeah.
You know what I
I'm
mean?
just saying this becomes an observation of a shift in the social dynamic that people just don't want to talk about openly. And the argument is that people want to have kids and families and act a certain way because society's telling them to. But
Right.
a lot of these women and men too, a lot of guys have come along saying like even for me, and like having kids. When I was growing up, I had no fucking interest in kids, none whatsoever. I even actually didn't like kids. I got skeeved out of it, like playing with kids and interacting with kids. I just for
Yeah.
whatever reason didn't like them. And then like I just hit a certain age, and I had a girlfriend or two that was like, "Oh, you seem motherly. You seem feminine and motherly and nurturing. I've seen you interact with kids." And it's
Mhm.
just something in my brain just went,
I feel like it's
yes.
literally instinctual though. Like I do.
That's the argument of like, is it society or is it
I
biology? Is it a both? It's a mixture of both, obviously.
a mixture of both, but I definitely think it's biological. I think like, when men are looking for women, they are looking for someone to raise their children. Like
Yeah.
I just think that's what you're looking for.
And I think the animosity in the culture becomes like, that's all you want. All you want is just be like, just pump out babies. And it's like, no, I want you to be like, I want you to want this too, so that we can want it together, so that we can build a strong connection together, so that when the tough times come along, we're going to be ready for it together and then build something bigger than ourselves.
Right. Yeah, I mean I do think that's what we all want. So,
Yeah. And so then the argument then becomes like, how much of what you're thinking is a function of you genuinely being who you are versus suppressing emotion versus society telling you what to do.
well, yeah, it's
And it's a weird nuanced balance sort of figure out. And so the core of what we're trying to do with the coaching essentially is like, can we get down to the root of who you are? What do you want with life? How do we get you there? How do we get rid of the things that have been stopping you from getting there?
right.
By
And like
looking
what
at like the
belief
behavior.
systems are yours.
Yeah, it's like if I can go back in time and create the perfect childhood, who would you then be? Because more often than not, people are a function of the childhood they had. They became who they had to become to survive.
100%. Yeah, because you don't have a choice when you're a child. And I mean, yeah, we take that survival mode into adulthood, obviously, but we have a choice then. You really don't have a choice when you're a child.
People don't. A lot of people don't know they have the choice. That's where self-awareness comes into play,
Yeah, I mean,
and that's the scary part too. Which is like once you become
humans, like,
what?
like, you can choose.
That's yeah. Free will's a bitch. Yeah.
I fucking love it, but like again, I'm like,
But sometimes it's like, do I have to take responsibility? Why can't something just decide for me? But that's exactly where things like that's where that statement from the beginning comes from. Like if you don't make this your unconscious conscious, you'll let it live your life and call it fate. And that's what people say.
right.
Like it was just wasn't meant to be. I just couldn't find. There was no good guys out. There's no good girls out there. It's like there's so many excuses we'll create to mask the underlying truth
Right.
of I had more control than I thought I did, but I was too afraid to exercise it.
Right, and there are good girls and good guys, but maybe
Yeah.
the energy that you're putting out can't meet them. So, yeah, again, look at you, right? We all
And
have,
that's what we do with the coaching and even
yeah,
therapy and things like that. It's
yeah,
like you what are your I refer to it, and this is a bit nerdy science of me. I refer to it as your algorithm, meaning like what's the software code in the back of your brain that does like when you go on a computer and you like open a file, there's a whole software that says when you click the mouse, It goes through these lines of code to open up this one particular thing and do this exact sequence of things. It's all written down in code. I can't see it, but it's in there somewhere.
Right.
When you go out into the world and say, like, I'm looking for a partner, what does your software look like? What is your algorithm trained on? Oh, look for broken people with, mommy or daddy issues. I can't see it, but I can tell you it's there based on how you respond to it. And so the question becomes like, can we get you to start seeing your software, your code, get you to start rewriting that code so that when you go out and say, I want to have a family, I want to have kids, I like doing it. This is who I am authentically. Authentically, I'm like, even right now, when I was younger, I was super duper shy. You would not catch me dead having a conversation like this, speaking my mind openly. And everyone was just like, oh, he's just shy. That's just what
Yeah.
he is. He's just shy. He's always been shy. He's socially awkward. That's what he's just shy. And then when I actually started practicing, like trying to be a little more talkative, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I fucking love talking. Why didn't anybody tell me this? Like, well, because they
Yeah,
were trying to do
figure it
things
out
that kind of like,
yourself.
yeah, like nobody showed me what my code looked like.
Right.
And I had to kind of go out and just practice, and also like
Right,
practice
but no one
breaking
can show you what your code is in general. That's the
so this ties into an interesting thing. We, in a very, 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 very simple sense, we're wired for like one of two things. Either you want to move towards something or move away from something.
Mhm.
When you see a cute puppy who's wagging his tail looking at you, oh, I want to move towards that. I want to approach.
Well, yeah,
That's your
definitely,
approach system. Cute baby,
definitely
cute
going.
puppy, somebody you know,
Definitely.
cute something you like to enjoy, whatever it may be. A friend of yours you spot out in the open that suddenly you weren't expecting there, you want to move towards them. Your body's like, go
Mhm.
towards that thing because there's positivity over there.
Yeah.
You're out and about, and you see a bear, you see a creepy guy staring at you.
I
You
mean,
like, you know.
my toxic trait is I might want to go towards the bear.
But in general, the idea being like you either want to move towards things or away
Right.
from things.
No.
Growing up, what you need is really what the healthiest childhood you could have is as many opportunities to experiment, stepping out of your comfort zone and trying new things.
Right.
And over time, you'll figure out, oh, I'm like this. I like these things. I don't like these things. I've tried this. I've tried this. Tried it. And then when you get to adulthood, you're like, I know who I am.
Fully know who you are as a child.
No, 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 no. You're not going to know. But the idea is that you get as many opportunities to try as many different things to
Which is,
figure out
yeah.
what you like, what you're naturally good at, what you have an aptitude towards.
Right. Because
Like
if
some
you
people,
don't, well, if you don't do that as a child, you end up like me trying to figure that out at my age, you know?
that's exactly it. So then,
Which it just gets harder because we just have to make money. So,
yeah, exactly. So then it becomes a question of like, well, how are we creating so many people who are not able to figure out who the hell they are until they're 67? Is it
childhood,
whatever?
family, but it's also like we can blame the school system. I can blame
Oh
society
yeah, school
itself. Like,
system's pretty fucked. Yeah, that's a whole discussion too.
it makes it really hard even for parents in this modern day age too, because even I like here hypothetically,
Go for it.
like like say that my childhood was perfect, but I was still me. Like I still had this rebellious, like curious spirit that
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
always had. That like, and my parents weren't like really toxic. I was just fucking nuts, and I needed to explore, and I wasn't living in a world that let that happen. So actually, this isn't hypothetical. This is my fucking life, and my mother tried to be as supportive as she possibly could. My dad sucks, and that's a different issue, but my mother really did. But then, like, I'm in these systems that don't support my individuality. I'm at
Yes.
this school that doesn't support my individuality.
Yes.
My creativity is being brutalized and mutilated, and it's not my family's fault, actually. It's the schools, it's the kids around me. Like, everybody picked on me, everybody bullied me. I was fucking weird. I wasn't allowed to be that way. So it's like, even if your family isn't the fault, like, our world isn't set up for you to, like,
It
do
yeah, and
that.
the argument, the discussion then was like, what kind of, because the people that are being born are just repeating the system.
Right.
Like a lot of people go through school system to become teachers to then continue the school system. The
Right.
problem is we don't know whether or not these systems work unless we have enough of a time scale to see whether it works or not.
I mean,
Especially
I
with
think
society and culture.
in ways, but I know for a fact there's a
Oh no,
lot
the modern school system was not designed for like open thought and creativity and I'm not saying it's like malicious evil.
He wasn't thought.
No, no, no. And so like the modern school system is actually modeled after something, I think it's like Lithuania or something like Slovenia. There was like a whole system that the people designed, the bell ringing in between classes.
Yeah.
That was meant to
Jarring.
mimic like the bell ringing between shifts at factories.
Yeah, well, it feels that way. Feels
That's
fun.
exactly what it was meant. And basically, the modern school system was modeled off of an older system, which was meant to produce factory workers,
Yeah.
which is
So
why,
you're
like,
trying
sit
to throw
down,
resources
straightforward.
and raise little worker bees to
Exactly.
fuel the richest line their pockets. Yeah, like
That's a whole, yeah, that's a whole
fucking
discussion. I know. So then the question, so then getting to, can we get to a point as a society culturally where we can try to do our best, not perfect, but our best to give as many opportunities for variety as possible to get kids to figure out who they are
I
quicker so
think
they can get on a path earlier in life
I
to then
think
find a fulfilling life. And if they did, if you had those kids who were like raised in that environment, would they then grow up to be healthy adults that says, I know who I am, I know what I like to do, I know what I enjoy doing. Because I'm so healthy and well-rounded and fulfilled, I like the idea of starting a family.
yeah, I wonder now, like, before we end, let's just bring it back to me again, because I've always known who I am, like, even as a little kid. Unfortunately, like, I always knew I was very, not unfortunately, but
I was gonna say,
I'm no fucking different. Like, I knew I was very creative. I knew what I liked to do. I knew what I wanted to do. And unfortunately, because of the system I was raised in, I just like, instead of like having guidance to do that in a healthy way, I had to rebel so hard that I ended up like fucking my life up a lot. Oh, 7 ways to Sunday to like get away from these things a lot of times. And I just wonder what would have happened because now I'm doing all the things that like I wanted to do when I was 7. So like, great. I already fucking knew it. So like, I do wonder that if I was like encouraged instead of shunned, I mean, I'd end up at the same fucking place that I am right now, except that I wouldn't have had to go through like 30 years of fucking hell to get there. So it's like, I wonder how I would feel then. Because for me, it's like, I don't know, that's how I feel about it.
well,
I don't
that
really, like, yeah,
all of that essentially is your algorithm right now.
yeah. So I
And then
don't,
the question becomes like if you wanted to try to get into like a healthy relationship with a, grounded person, if you decided to,
well, I mean,
that's when you have to go back and try to like rewrite that code.
I do. It will be with a healthy, grounded person. Like we said, I'm self-aware enough at this point. Like I'm not gonna even when my toxic traits start talking to me and my neurological pings start going, I know, but I'm not gonna do that to myself again. I like my life enough and I like myself and I have enough self-respect not to put myself in that situation again. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
It's a tough process, and it's tough to try to uncover like how much of it is authentically me and how much of it is this traits I had to do to survive my
Right.
upbringing,
Right.
and learning to let go of those traits to try to find more authenticity underneath it.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's essentially what I'm trying to do as the adaptive male, trying to help guys in particular. Women, like I'd love to, but I just don't have the experience not being a woman
Right.
myself. But I
Easy.
understand. I've lived that childhood of being the person who I had to be to try to survive, like how to like take care of my mother, how to take care of. I learned to become a people pleaser. I learned to like I'm not really taking care of myself. And then now at 35, I'm like, oh, this is who I actually am. This is what I really enjoy doing. This is the life I'd like to live. Cool. How do I move in that direction? And how do I make sure to keep enough self-awareness and people around me in the right environment to ensure I don't fall off track? Because if I'm left by my own devices, I will fall off track. And so this is what we do with the coaching. This is what we do with things like that, is trying to help guys figure out like what are the patterns? Where do they come from? How do we break them? How do we figure out where you want to go? Rather than saying it's just luck, it's just fate, it's just I had no choice in it. It's like it's the
No,
economy, it's
you.
this, it's that. What's up?
I said, no, it's you. You.
At the end of the day, more up there are parts of it you can't control. It's like you can't control the economy. It just kind of is what it is, unfortunately. Like you can't control other people, but the one thing you can influence is like how you choose to respond and take advantage of the
Yeah.
opportunities that present themselves. By saying like I could keep dating the same type of person, or I could say I'm going to go find a healthy person and I'm going to do my goddamn best to stay grounded. Because this is the whole discussion we have next time of like attachment theory. Have you ever heard of that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, like people recognizing like avoidance or anxiousness is not a choice necessarily. It's a emotional background programming screaming at your conscious mind to be like, run away, run towards them because this is reminding me of something that happened when you were 5 years old.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And so if you want to break those patterns, you have to work with somebody to then identify them and create guardrails. Like part of the move I mentioned before, I'm moving down south. Part of it is because I have friends that I grew up with. They moved down south. And in the past, when I had like toxic relationships, they were the first ones to be like, bro, not a good idea. You need to get away from this girl. You two are terrible for each other. This is not going to work out.
Good
And I'd be
friend.
like,
You
you
like
don't
that.
know, you don't understand. We love each other. It's going to
Oh,
work
they
out.
know. You just don't know.
Exactly. And now looking back, I was like, these are the guys I need to have around to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Well, 100%, but at the end of the day, like I know that it's so much easier for our friends and people who love us to see it. But at the end of the day, yes, it helps to have someone being like recognizing it, but only you can choose that.
Well, this is what I'm saying is I'm choosing to try to live in proximity of these guys to help me stay on track to the life
Yeah,
that I
but
want to
don't
live.
tell you all, they'll be like, bro,
Yes.
you gun.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hate them. I'm gonna fight them back. And I'm be like, you know what? Like this is a good moment.
Point because like at first when that starts happening, we take offense to it when anyone tells us that we're wrong or says
Oh,
something.
it still happens. It still like I for a good example is this is I play like I play video games with friends. It's easy because they could be anywhere in the world. We can still communicate and have fun together. And I have some friends that like I'm not very good at like fighting games, for example, or things like that. I have friends that are like they're really good. They're naturally good and they practice a lot. And I'll try to play these games and I get mad because I suck and oh they must be cheating. And I remember I've had times when they'll be like, you know what you could do? I'd recommend doing this, this, and this. And part of me is like, he's trying to give me good advice. This is good advice. I should listen. Another part of me is like, tell him to go fuck himself. Tell him to go fuck himself. Tell him to go fight. And I
Yeah.
can feel both of those. I'm just like, you're totally right, and
And also,
I don't want to hear it.
like, yeah, I feel like most of us feel that way when we're told anything other, but
But that's training the part of you that's learning to be receptive to outside critique and observations from people that care about you. It's like
we
I
have
wouldn't be
to
telling you
open
this if I didn't
ourselves.
love you.
Right. We have to open ourselves and not be offended.
And
That's
it's like there's a part of your ego. It's like, yeah, I don't
I
want to
wouldn't
hear
venture to
it.
guess that that's going to be a lifetime struggle for most people,
It
like
gets better though.
it does. I mean, I'm definitely a lot better at it now. I don't snap back at like my family when they give me advice. Like I just take it and I take
And you
what
sit
parts
with it. Yeah.
what parts of it I want that resonate with me or even matter, like I'll take, but I no longer need to attack you for giving it. Like I used to just like I'm
Yes.
fucking ass, so why the fuck are you doing this to me? Like
Yeah, and that's you recognizing your own egotistical defense. But it's natural. Everybody has that.
how you like love me, and even though I didn't ask, but I also know like sometimes I really do want it and I will ask for it, but I also know that I get a lot of unsolicited advice because as we do, people just love to give unsolicited advice. And so now I'm like, okay, just listen, nod your head, and if you don't fucking like it, girlfriend, don't fucking take it, but you don't need to attack the person because they're just doing what they feel is right and trying to be helpful, even though it's unsolicited fucking advice and you asked for none of it. It doesn't. You don't have to be a bitch. You again, free will. You don't have to choose violence. So yeah,
There's a good concept of like I forget who said it. I have to find the author, but it was like there's a stimulus, like somebody says something, and then there's the response, and then there's a gap between the two of them. And that gap is where the one thing you have to choose. Actually, it was Viktor Frankl. It's a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He was a survivor of the concentration camps in Auschwitz and in parts of Nazi Germany. And he basically made the observation that like the people that survived were the ones that chose to try to like look at the positive perspective of how to deal with what they were given. Like they didn't get to choose that they were in the camps, but they chose to try to like see how they could make the most of it to just choose to like to accept it as it is and try to survive. The ones who basically said, this is out of my control, why even bother? I give up, I quit. Those are the ones that died much quicker. And so the idea is like when you get to a point through meditation, through breathwork practice, through, like practicing interacting with people, you'll get that gap will get bigger and bigger of like someone said something that pisses me off and I really want to tell him to go fuck himself, punch him in the face, but I'm going to sit here, think about it for a few seconds and say like, okay, I need to go for a walk.
yeah.
And that's the hell. Like I need to cool off because you said something that really triggered me, and I want to do something terrible, but I recognize that it's not healthy. And then enough of that over time will start to you'll start to get better and better at getting that ability to contain that. That's the self-awareness coming into play.
Yeah, exactly. I see that happening with me. My rage doesn't snap out as much, but it's
It's
still
practice.
it's
It's
also
practice.
but right now it's still a thought, but I think that's normal. So yeah. But anyways, I feel like I've had you here for an hour. So do you have any? I could keep going for like 10 hours. So I'm
We'll
not
do
gonna
this again sometime. It's just fun.
do it again, and I swear I won't be defensive about children for the whole hour.
Hey, you're more than welcome to be. I have no problem with you doing that. It's your opinion right now. I'm just my goal is to just ask the question, to get the people to the question of like how much of what you're thinking is a function of you versus a function of something that happened outside of you. It's influencing your behavior, and then can we separate the two and figure out what you really, really want so that you don't end up 60, 70, 80 years old and alone and like whatever it may be. It's like it's one thing to say I've met people who are like in their 60s, 70s who are just like I'm single and I fucking love it and I've never not loved it. Like God bless.
See, like
Love it.
right now,
Awesome.
never been being like I've never been so happy in my life as a single woman. But like you said, how much of that is I don't know. I don't know if I really mean my 10-year plan. Right now, I really do. Like right now, I don't want anything to do with it. Right now, I'm like thriving. I'm happy. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
The simplest test of that would be to say like if somebody comes along and pokes it and you get really defensive about it, I'm not saying you did, I'm saying like if ever you do,
I got really defensive about the kids thing.
so then there might be something to explore.
I think mostly I don't know. Well, maybe it's more than that, but from how I think of it right now, I just get really defensive about the kids thing because people like I don't know, I just like think that society has always told me that like I will change my mind and I feel like it does trigger me. Because I
It's a
really don't
it's
think I will. But then again, like what if
it's
I do?
a
What? It shouldn't trigger you. I don't know.
it's an autonomy thing. It's basically you saying how much control do I have over myself and my future.
Right.
There's a certain degree of respect we have to give to our own biology to say like there are some things I'm going to feel that I did not choose to feel that I have to just embrace.
Right. And if I start to feel that way, like again, I'm not gonna like shun it or cut it off. I just like don't know that I will, and I don't know. But we'll see. Well, I can't predict my fucking future. I can pretend, but
You
no.
could do your best to try to model it though and create the environmental circumstances to make sure you get to where you want to go.
Exactly. Well, where can we find you? You're the on Instagram, right?
On Instagram and YouTube, The Adaptive Male, Facebook as well. And I'm just pushing out new content every week talking about topics like this and trying to connect to men who may be looking for more support and trying to figuring out what are their patterns, where do they come from, what's the science behind it, and then how do I then start taking actionable steps to start changing and breaking to get the life that I want rather than trying to like rather than falling into the loop over and over again and continue calling it fate.
Well, great. It was great to have you, and everybody go work with him and and listen to my show and subscribe to me because I'm fucking awesome. He's fucking awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank
Both
you for
awesome.
listening.
Thank you so much, Layla. I appreciate this. This was great.
The Layla Show.